Men from all over Russia were given 1 hour to pack and report to their draft offices to take part in Vladimir Putin's special military operation.
It comes after humiliating losses for Putin in Ukraine and a day after he threatened to retaliate with nuclear weapons. The United Nations Security Council condemned Russia in a fiery gathering.
But as Russia has the power of veto, the UN is left powerless to act, something our Prime Minister is pushing to change during her visit to New York. Political reporter Amelia Wade is there.
These could be final hugs. Children catching every last moment. Women bidding tearful goodbyes to the Russian men conscripted to fight in Putin's war. Military recruiters screamed at by Russian civilians who argued there was no future to fight for. And at the border, long streams of traffic, people desperate to get across the border and out of Russia one way or another. In New York, the dreadful gloom of Russia's latest threats settling on assembled world leaders. The United Nations paralysed to act.
One man chose this war. One man can end it.
A fiery meeting of the all-powerful Security Council spelling out what's at stake.
If Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends.
The Russians strolled in late and their foreign minister is not backing down from the narrative that it is liberating Ukraine and that it's the West to blame for prolonging the war.
To drag out the fighting as long as possible in spite of the victims and destruction in order to wear down and weaken Russia.
This senseless war has unlimited potential to do terrible harm in Ukraine and around the world. The idea of nuclear conflict, once unthinkable, has become a subject of debate.
We are seeing an escalation in the language and potentially an escalation of the conflict that could affect all of us.
Affecting those even a world away from the war, Newshub ran into a group of Liberians in New York for the UN meetings.
The Ukraine war is affecting the whole entire world, so it is not good. We are praying for it to stop.
Destroying the nation, destroying children, this is very evil. It needs to stop. America needs to go do something.
The world's media is gathered here at the United Nations and most of its attention is fixated on Russia and Ukraine.
As the world watches on, scrutinising the UN's response to this crisis, there's no getting around the fact that this is an international organisation hamstrung by Russia's ability to veto any decision.
We need reform of the UN. It's simply not good enough that we've had to act bilaterally. We've had to act on our own to make sure that we're seeing those consequences for Russia because of the veto and the failure of the Security Council.
Ardern met the head of the United Nations today, but is pushing back on calls from home to expel the Russian ambassador.
All of the things we could do, that is one of the least meaningful in this situation. How do you then make sure that Russia feels the full force? Sanctions remain the best option there.
Ukraine wants the world to see Russia for what it is.
We must finally recognize Russia as the state of sponsor of terrorism.
Would you use that label?
There's many labels that I wouldn't necessarily disagree with, but the point is these are all words. What we need is action. We need the war to end.
And words are what Ardern would have for any Russian diplomat shared meet.
I would share directly exactly what I'm saying to you now, that their war is illegal, that it is immoral, that it is taking the lives of civilians. Russia needs to hear that from every corner of the international community.
But the question is, will it listen?
Okay, Amelia joins us now from New York. So Jacinda Ardern has her big speech tomorrow, Amelia. Will she call out the United Nations?
The Prime Minister wrote her speech 9 days ago, but has had to rewrite it because everything changed when Putin threatened the world with nuclear weapons. Tomorrow, Jacinda Ardern will stand at the world's biggest stage and call on countries to follow New Zealand's nuclear-free lead, pushing leaders into telling them that they have a duty of care to keep people safe. This has always been New Zealand's stance, but it's now more important than ever.
Amelia Wade live in New York. Thanks for the update.